Is everybody ready? This is a 2-minute warning. Excuse me.
Am I correct that Commissioner Rush is not on yet?
I am determining how to make him a presenter, a panelist as a phone call, but he is dialed in.
I see. Yes, he just messaged to say as much.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Mike Rush here. Okay, I'll go back on mute. I'm in.
Does somebody have the power to name his line just so it's identified as him?
Yes.
Is everybody ready to go? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hereby call this remote meeting of the WMSC to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. Mr. Smith, do we have a quorum today?
Yes, Chair Hart. You're present. Commissioners Rush, Berardike, Bob, Alcatib, and Lobby are all present.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. We will start today with our safety message from Emergency Management Specialist Richard David. Mr. David?
Thank you, Chair Hart. May is National Bike Month. If you're driving a car, be sure to give people cycling plenty of space and don't rush to pass. If you're biking to the metro, remember, use the elevators rather than the escalators to bring your bike in and out of the station. On trains, be sure to hold your bike so that it doesn't fall onto other people or create a tripping hazard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. We will now move on to the minutes from our previous meeting. Secretary Treasurer Berardike, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. The minutes of the April 11th, 2023 meeting were posted for review. Are there any additional corrections or additions to the minutes? I move approval of the April 11th minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lobby has seconded the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
Yay.
Any opposed?
Yay.
Please.
Commissioner Rush raises his hand.
Thank you. Any opposed? Please raise your hand and say nay.
I believe the vote is 6-0, but Commissioner Bob, I did not hear your vote. I saw. You need to do both. Sorry, our rules are. Okay, 6-0. Thank you. Measure carries.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The next item on the agenda is that we provide an opportunity for public comments at each of our meetings. And we will now ask if any members of the public who have joined our Zoom webinar would like to speak. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and our staff will unmute one person at a time. Each person will have a maximum of 2 minutes. I will pause now to see if we have any public comments. To make this easier for future meetings, we plan to adjust this process to provide you your name ahead of the start of the meeting. I would also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. Ms. Minor, do we have anyone who has indicated that they would like to speak?
Yes, Chair, we have one speaker. Mr. William Jackson, you have 2 minutes. I'll unmute you.
Good afternoon, Chair Hart, Dr. Meyer, commissioners, and the commission. To be very clear, I have 100% no problem ever getting on the system as a rider. That's never my point. I wanted to comment about Metro's January 16th unfortunate public assertion that the WMSC is acting in spite because of its former Metro board members as commissioners, etc. I emailed about this yesterday, and Mr. Max Smith, not Attorney Smith, was kind enough to email me back, and I have something to say. Clearly, I was upset about Commissioner Rush's March 7th comments about ATO, and that's what I was referring to last month. And I was off-put by the other commenters and was also trying to not call Commissioner Rush or other people out. So that's why I was trying to be kind of vague. But this issue is something else entirely. And I, by chance, have personally met a former Metro employee down here in Richmond. They were referred to as the help at Metro. They repeatedly raised safety concerns to no avail. But in my purview, they had a direct connection to the Fort Totten incident. General Manager Clark said that, I don't want to make this personal in any way, Justin, of the Washington Post, because I think that would be inappropriate. And I've never seen any signs of that. I will say it's my understanding that 8 to 10 WMSC staff members are former board members, and I just want everyone to work in good faith. As a member of the public, there's a lot of, I am so sorry, I wrote this and I'm completely out of time and I'm getting a little emotional, but this whole thing is out of control. And I will email you guys my full statement, but this is too much. And I really appreciated Max emailing me back. And I will email you guys my full statement. But this is out of control and too much. And, you know, again, as always, I really, really, really thank you guys. So
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
yeah, I appreciate it.
I see no other hands, Chair Hart.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Minor, and thank you for your support from the public. We will now continue on with the next agenda item, which is my remarks. Our meeting today includes updates on the WMSC's ongoing safety oversight activities and the actions that we take on a daily basis to help ensure that Metro Rail continuously improves the safety of its system. I want to thank the WMSC staff for their tireless oversight work on behalf of the region across Metro Rail subject areas day in and day out. Dr. Meyer, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, sir, I do. Our recent safety oversight of Metro Rail includes reviews of train operator certification issues, our ongoing oversight of Metro Rail's safety certification work on projects such as Potomac Yard Station and the potential use of automatic train operation, and our monitoring of staffing issues in the Rail Operations Control Center. Later in this meeting, Mr. Quigley will present for your consideration a safety event investigation report for a December 6th, 2022 red signal overrun. During this investigation, the WMSC identified that Metro Rail was not meeting its train operator training requirements. Metro Rail acknowledged the safety issue and provided training to more than 50 operators who had not received it. We have continued to review training and certification records, including as part of more recent events. This includes identifying that an operator involved in an improper train movement late last month had failed both of their attempts at certification by not successfully completing troubleshooting testing on one attempt, then also failing the next attempt. Metro Rail's requirements provide only 2 such attempts. However, this operator was provided an additional attempt and was certified by Metro Rail despite information that suggests that they were not required to attempt all elements of the certification. We have found similar issues in reviews of other certification records and are preparing for further action if necessary. On Metro Rail's potential use of automatic train operation and automatic door operation, our team continues extensive work overseeing Metro Rail's safety certification efforts and the many outstanding safety issues related to this project. Metro Rail procedures require that these hazards be addressed in a systematic way. In addition to our communication with Metro Rail over the last several years, our team has provided specific examples to Metro Rail since the fall to provide every opportunity to properly carry out Metro Rail's safety certification process. Our team has continued to review documents provided by Metro Rail, has observed preliminary test runs, and is awaiting additional data from those runs. We also look forward to Metro Rail systematically addressing the issues demonstrated by preliminary testing and other previously outstanding issues, and to Metro Rail developing and providing new or updated, more comprehensive test plans and processes. Operating an ATO and auto doors requires a high level of attention to detail to ensure that operators and others properly intervene when the system fails and that any issues are identified and addressed in a timely fashion. We continue to seek to understand Metro Rail's evolving plans as they relate to roadway worker protection and ATO and the layers of safety that Metro Rail will provide. We've highlighted these issues to Metro Rail on an ongoing basis, and our team will provide more details later in the meeting on our continuing work. Regarding the Rail Operations Control Center, we remain concerned about staffing of Metro Rail's ROC and other changes. After some progress, Metro Rail is continuing its recent negative trend and is not maintaining appropriate staffing. This is presenting safety issues such as excessive workload on rail controllers. We're concerned about the negative effect this could have on the safety of operations and continue to communicate this concern to multiple levels of the Metro Rail organization. Our team is conducting spot checks of performance, staffing, and workload, and will consider ordering changes if necessary. On a positive note, Metro Rail has made safety improvements to the Power Operations Center, which had previously been called the Power Desk, located in the Rail Operations Control Center. These improvements, due to the order we issued a year ago tomorrow on Metro Rail's improper power restoration, are providing for Metro Rail to safely and gradually increase the number of work locations where power removal and restoration is required. The improvements include staffing and training. We'll continue to monitor this performance. Regarding Potomac Yard Station, Metro Rail has said it expects to complete its work this week necessary to open the station to riders safely. Metro Rail has announced publicly its plans to open the station this Friday. Our team has conducted oversight of Metro Rail's work, most recently including on-site work spot checking certifiable items, reviewing documents and data, and reviewing Metro Rail's draft temporary use notice so that we are prepared to concur that Metro Rail has completed its safety certification steps necessary to open the station, once these actions related to additional testing and temporary mitigations have been completed. Regarding the 7000 series rail cars, Metro Rail adjusted wheel set inspection intervals to every 15 days based on data review and analysis. Metro Rail continues to conduct in the coming weeks. The inspection intervals may soon progress to 30 days. Metro Rail is developing plans, processes, and procedures to test and then, if the test is successful, implement design changes for the interference fit of wheels and axles. Metro Rail has change management and safety certification procedures that are designed to ensure that the risk of unintended consequences is reduced and that any such consequences are identified and effectively mitigated. Ms. Samara Singha will provide additional information about our oversight of Metro Rail's activities related to the 7000 series rail cars in a few minutes. We are also investigating other recent safety events, including an April 15th red signal overrun and improper train movement without automatic train protection. To provide an update on 2 FTA safety advisories in accordance with the FTA's advisory related to automatic train control and signaling, safety risk management, and to rail car doors, we directed Metro Rail to undertake specific safety reviews, and Metro Rail has submitted this information to the WMSC within the required timeframe. And on another note, we continue to develop our risk-based inspection program, building on our existing strong oversight program and our authority. So that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Dr. Meyer?
I have a question, Chair Hart.
Yes, please, Commissioner Lowby.
Dr. Moyer, you discussed the rock and the problem with fully staffing the rock. Is there an overall problem at Washington Metro with getting qualified people? And the reason I ask this is the first accident review that we're going to do talks about train operators and talks about train operator training. And is there a lot of new people coming into Washington Metro that require this training?
I don't know that I can speak to any difficulty they may be having in hiring with regard specifically to the rock. I think the training, the issue is mostly the training pipeline. The training program for becoming a rail traffic controller takes quite a long time, and it is, in my judgment, although Ms. Samarasinga may have other comments to add, it's simply a problem that can't be resolved quickly because of the time frame to train new controllers.
But is the pipeline full or is it emptying out?
We have had concerns that the pipeline is not full.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby. Any other questions for Dr. Meyer? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to a status update on the 7000 series rail cars. Ms. Samarasinga, please take the floor.
Thank you, Chair Hart. We continue to oversee Metro Rail's implementation of the Return to Service Plan and any revisions to this plan. Metro Rail's plan and the submissions of any revisions is required in accordance with the WMSC's December 29th, 2021 order. As Dr. Meyer mentioned, we continue to be engaged with Metro Rail on potential revisions to this Return to Service Plan. Through an iterative process and ongoing communication, similar to the process followed last year at this time, Metro Rail is progressing adjustments. So far, this has included adjusting to a 15-day inspection interval for back-to-back and journal bearing gap measurements. Metro Rail and the WMSC are reviewing data, and we expect an analysis later this month. Metro Rail is also developing design changes for its wheel sets to address the issues identified during the 7000 series railcar design and development. Issues that have not been identified during the 7000 series railcar design and development. The concept is to change the design fit of wheels and axles, increasing the interference fit and therefore the press tonnage required to assemble the wheel sets. This would reduce the risk of wheels migrating on axles. As we have communicated to Metro Rail repeatedly, this design, engineering, and implementation process must follow Metro Rail's change management procedures and their agency safety plan. These requirements are designed by Metro Rail to identify potential or actual unintended consequences and provide the highest level of assurance that hazards and risks are identified and mitigated. Metro Rail's change management processes cover engineering test requirements, engineering modification processes, and safety certification by Metro Rail of changes to form, in this case, fit or function. In accordance with our order, we have provided feedback to Metro Rail regarding its development of this program in a timely fashion. We are now reviewing information Metro Rail provided at the end of last week. These steps to bring wheelset assembly requirements for 7000 series railcars in line with industry norms is likely to be one part of the long-term design improvements for the Metro Rail system. Metro Rail has recently completed the first part of a review of frog design, installation, and maintenance. The frog is part of a special track work or switches and interlockings that shows significant wear at times at Metro Rail. We are also monitoring Metro Rail's work related to the evaluation of restraining rail specifications, installation, and maintenance. We continue to raise and resolve issues as they arise on an ongoing basis. And that completes my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Samarasinga. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Samarasinga? Okay, seeing none, we will now move on to our next item, which is audits, with an update from Program Coordination Specialist Ashley Rhodes. Ms. Rhodes?
Thank you, Chair Hart. We are currently working on draft audit reports for our recent audits of Metro Rail's Structures Program and Roadway Maintenance Machine Program. We conducted interviews and field work for our automatic train control and signals audit, and our team is now reviewing follow-up documentation, including as it relates to track circuit verifications and inspections. Our exit conference for this audit is tomorrow. We have also begun work on the next audit, power systems, which will include both high and low voltage power and related equipment. Interviews and fieldwork are expected to begin in late June. Our audits assess Metrorail against the relevant criteria, such as the requirements of Metrorail's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, requirements specified in other Metrorail documents such as SOPs, manuals, orders, and regulatory requirements. These audits cover all aspects of Metrorail's Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan over a 3-year period and are designed to proactively identify safety issues. We take steps to ensure Metrorail personnel feel free to speak openly and transparently with us during each interaction, as this leads to the greatest opportunity for accurate and meaningful recognition of positive practices or areas for improvement. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Rhodes? Okay, seeing none, we will now take up the next agenda item, which is corrective action plans from Audits and CAPS Program Manager Davis Rattick. Mr. Rattick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Since the last public meeting, we have closed 8 corrective action plans. This is in addition to work related to CAP modification requests for Metrorail. When Metrorail develops corrective action plans to address the safety deficiencies identified by WMSC findings and recommendations or other issues specified by the WMSC program standard, Metrorail submits these plans to the WMSC for review and approval. Each CAP is a specific plan to address a safety deficiency, so the proactive identification of these deficiencies by the WMSC and later the resolution of these deficiencies by Metrorail is part of the continuous safety improvement process. After Metrorail submits acceptable CAP proposals that will address the safety deficiency, Metrorail is responsible for implementing its corrective action plans on the schedule documented in the CAP. Metrorail's implementation of each of these CAPs improves the safety of the system for riders and workers. Even after a CAP is closed, the WMSC also monitors Metrorail's actions on an ongoing basis through our audit, inspection, and other oversight activities. Overall, Metrorail currently has 116 open CAPs that it is in the process of implementing. During that implementation, the WMSC reviews information to verify progress. For example, after WMSC follow-up requests, Metrorail demonstrated that it has met the initial requirements of our order issued last year regarding Metrorail's improper power restoration. The order led to specific safety mitigations and to an improved and expanded corrective action plan for Metrorail. Metrorail is implementing the corrective action plan, which includes safety improvements such as staffing, training, oversight, and technical fixes. The initial safety improvements have now led to Metrorail being able to safely utilize more work locations requiring power de-energization on each shift. As I mentioned, the WMSC has closed 8 CAPs since the last public meeting. Metrorail's implementation of each of these CAPs improves the safety of the system for riders and workers. As part of CAP C60, Metrorail updated approximately 100 procedures and created a new central document repository and a new document control procedure for the Rail Operations Control Center to address the finding from the ROCC audit that procedures were not reviewed and updated as required. CAP C77 addressed a finding from the elevated structures audit that Metrorail did not have consistent requirements for refresher or additional training for structures inspection and maintenance teams. Metrorail now has a new aerial work platform training critical inspection techniques training, and bridge inspection refresher training requirements. CAP C110 addressed a finding from the automatic train control and signaling audit that training and parts needed for maintenance appear to be an afterthought in WMATA procurements. As a result, WMATA created a new checklist to ensure that spare parts and training are included as part of procurements going forward. CAP C123 addressed a finding from the fitness for duty audit that not all safety sensitive employee positions have fully documented and up-to-date physical and medical requirements. Metrorail has now updated job descriptions and created a new process that will review the requirements prior to recruiting for these positions. CAP C133 addressed a recommendation from the fitness for duty audit that Metrorail confirm the accuracy of new hires' self-reported list of prior Department of Transportation covered employers. Metrorail created a new process that includes contacting the prior employers before the individual is hired. This ensures Metrorail checks to all prior DOT covered employers in the new hires' work history to be sure that the person meets drug and alcohol testing requirements. CAP C145 addressed a finding from the revenue vehicle or railcar audit that Metrorail uses multiple versions of the same inspection form that do not include the same pass/fail criteria. Metrorail revised periodic inspection checklists and provided the same form across all shops. CAP C200 addressed a finding from the station maintenance and elevator and escalator audit that Metrorail does not consistently communicate and follow its procedures governing change management and requiring interdepartmental coordination. Metrorail incorporated change management into its training classes. And finally, CAP C206 addressed a finding from the station maintenance and elevator and escalator audit that Metrorail began new inspections referred to as visual or, quote, routine inspections prior to finalizing, communicating, and formally implementing an effective procedure. Metrorail has now developed revised procedures and provided training on those procedures. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Raddick. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Raddick?
I have a question for Mr. Raddick, Commissioner. Chair
Yes,
Hart.
Commissioner Laube, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you at the beginning of your presentation, Mr. Raddick, you said that since the last public meeting, we've closed 8 caps. This is in addition to work related to cap modification requests from Metrorail. Can you tell us what kind of cap modification requests you're receiving?
Typically, they're in the form of changes to the timeline or extension requests. There are a few exceptions where it's more substantive changes in the nature of the deliverables, but by and large, if we get a modification request, it's in for a timeline extension, which could be for any number of reasons.
Okay, do you have any examples of a substantive modification request from Metrorail, just to give us a flavor?
One example might be maybe there was work that was supposed to take place that under a certain action item, and they then need to reformulate that corrective action plan to either break that work up into multiple action items, or maybe it's already been addressed through a different work activity.
Okay, but most of these requests have to do with the timelines, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Laube, and thank you, Mr. Raddick. It looks like you are certainly staying busy in the CAP department, and kudos to you guys for staying on top of these issues to help pursue the continuous improvement of Metro Rail safety. Appreciate that. We will now move on to our next agenda item, an update on some of the WMSC's latest activities overseeing Metro Rail safety certification process from Mr. Tino Sahu. Mr. Sahu?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hart. Metrorail's safety certification process is a critical element of Metrorail's safety management system, consistently identifying hazards and mitigating the likelihood and severity of those hazards in a systematic way as documented in Metrorail's policy and procedures is what provides for the overall safety of the Metrorail system. To achieve this, Metrorail must carry out all elements of its safety requirements without bypassing any part of this holistic safety process. We oversee Metrorail safety certification through field observations, document data review, and regular meetings with Metrorail as well as by observing the discussions by Metrorail safety certification committees and working groups. Metrorail is progressing this work on projects such as the Potomac Yard Station. Potomac Yard is an infill station that Metrorail is building on the blue and yellow lines in Alexandria, along with the associated new track and systems. Potomac Yard is a project that we designated for an in-depth review of Metrorail's safety certification process, and that therefore requires our concurrence that Metrorail has completed its safety certification process before Metrorail opens the station to riders. As with other such projects, we communicate regularly with Metrorail, review documents and data, and observe field conditions. Metrorail is still working on testing and mitigation implementation necessary to safely open the station. Metrorail expects to provide us with additional information tomorrow. Metrorail has announced publicly that it plans to open the station Friday. This can only occur if Metrorail completes its safety certification, including any mitigations or corrective actions. Metrorail completes this work, such as testing and the implementation of safety mitigations. We expect to be able to concur this week that Metrorail has conducted its safety certification of the new Potomac Yard Station in accordance with its procedures as required to open the station. Metrorail's safety certification and therefore our concurrence is dependent on the results of testing and the implementation of safety mitigations that Metrorail has identified as necessary to safely open the station. We have prepared extensively for this stage of the project so that we can review things in a timely fashion. Still, this review of these tests and validation of mitigations that provide for the safety of riders and workers cannot occur until Metrorail completes its work, and we will take the time necessary to provide effective safety oversight. In the fall, we concur that Metrorail had followed its safety certification process to identify and mitigate hazards necessary for Metrorail to issue a temporary use notice for elements of the Potomac Yard project. That allowed trains to begin passing through the new station without stopping. We have continued to observe progress on site and to review project documentation. I and our team have checked progress on site against Metrorail's certifiable items list and observed corrections being made. We are awaiting Metrorail's work on its remaining items. A project that we have designated for in-depth review where we have identified and continuously communicated significant issues is Metrorail's automatic train operation and automatic door operation project. We are continuing to engage with Metrorail regarding outstanding issues as we have for several years. The WMSC's automatic train control and signaling team, as well as my colleagues assisting me in oversight of Metrorail's safety certification process, continue our careful oversight and consistent communication with Metrorail. This includes observations of preliminary test activities, review of data, and regular meetings and communication with the Metrorail personnel involved with the project to maintain the most up-to-date understanding of Metrorail's assessment of and planning for the project. I'd ask my colleague Paul Smith, who is our train control and signals expert, to provide some additional updates.
Thank you, Mr. Sehu. As you mentioned, we have provided our latest round of constructive feedback to Metrorail since last fall to provide them with every opportunity to comply with their safety certification and hazard management procedures and associated processes. This builds on the WMSC's similar work over the last several years. We have expressed concerns about deficiencies in test and operational plans, about the condition and functionality of physical systems, and about Metrorail's approach to potentially activating these systems without considering the broad impacts to operations and the scenarios that will occur in real-world operations. Our team has observed preliminary test runs in April and May that bear out these issues. We have continued to communicate the need for a holistic, integrated evaluation of the system's functionality with the necessary test criteria, as well as testing of real-world policies, procedures, and scenarios to demonstrate that the system functions as intended. This is not about only those questions that we have raised. It is Metrorail's responsibility to carry out this holistic approach in accordance with its procedures. ATO has not been used in Metrorail's current operating environment. Among other things, Metrorail's developed and implemented its roadway worker protection program after Metrorail stopped using ATO. Metrorail's project documents also show outstanding unresolved safety issues from prior Metrorail reviews and analyses. We are continuing our interaction with the Metro Rail's project team, vehicles team, train control, and others with a focus on Metro Rail's identification and mitigation of organizational and operational hazards as required by Metro Rail's safety certification program and other Metro Rail safety commitments. Metro Rail's commitments are included in, and among other things, its agency safety plan, the safety certification program plan, the project-specific safety certification plan, and other processes and procedures. This is a significant effort that requires Metro Rail to ensure its entire organization is ready for such a change. We are awaiting further information from Metro Rail on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for that update. We continue to monitor Metro Rail's implementation of mitigations designated as part of Metro Rail's Silver Line Phase 2 safety certification. We also continue to ask Metro Rail to keep us informed of any work it may conduct on automated wayside inspection systems. Metro Rail describes these systems as a potential use to capture an array of measurements from rail cars that are in use to provide an additional layer of safety. Another project that we're conducting our in-depth review of Metro Rail's safety certification process is Metro Rail's 8,000 series rail cars. These are several years away from arrival in the Metro Rail system. Similarly, we conduct oversight work of Metro Rail's other safety certification activities. It is in all cases Metro Rail's responsibility to carry out this work in accordance with its policies and procedures. Thank you, Chair Hart. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Sahu and Mr. Smith. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Sahu or for Mr. Smith?
I have some questions, Chair Hart.
Yes, please, Commissioner Lowby.
Maybe I'll start with Mr. Sahu. Mr. Sahu, I understand that the Potomac Yard Station is due to open on Friday morning. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And that there's still items that have to be done to complete the safety certification process that we're waiting to receive from Washington Metro. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. We were supposed to get an update tomorrow morning.
Are we going to have sufficient time to actually review the submission? I don't know how big it is. Is it a small submission, or is it a lot of technical information? Do we have sufficient time to review that before the station opens on Friday?
So Metro did send over last week their safety certification package along with the ton. So we have been doing an ongoing review. So the updates tomorrow is going to be a small submission. So we should have sufficient time to review it, bring up any issues if there are any, and then thereafter, if there are no issues or those issues do become resolved, then we would be able to provide concurrence.
Commissioner Lobby, in addition to what Mr. Sahu pointed out, I just want to underscore and point back to the remarks that we made on this topic, which is we have been working very closely with the Metro Rail team on this. And as a matter of fact, as recently as yesterday, we had a conversation with the safety certification team as well as the project key contributors on Potomac Yard project, where everybody recognized that there are items that Metro Rail is indicating they had completed yesterday. And in Mr. Sahu's conversation, those individuals at Metro have indicated that they are assembling an updated set of information and package materials so that they can provide those to us tomorrow. This would be an incremental review on the areas that are awaiting confirmation that either the work is completed or temporary mitigations are in place, which Metro Rail had indicated would be in place as of yesterday, or that certain testing activities that needed to be completed were completed as of yesterday, all of which Metro Rail had pointed out would be done as of yesterday, May 15th. So as part of the role that we play as the independent state safety oversight entity and the work that we do on safety certification oversight, we are obliged to receive that information, conduct our own independent review, and concur when appropriate. And all indications are that the work has been ongoing, have been working in earnest, and we very much expect that the outcomes would be where we will be able to concur in a timely fashion as soon as the materials are reviewed. And we have confirmed for ourselves that the work has been carried out as specified in the safety certification program documents.
Well, thank you for that. And you know, I understand that there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, but I get a little bit concerned when we're down to the last minute, a couple of days, and the safety certification work hasn't been complete. And as long as everything is satisfactory, you know, that's fine. We can go ahead and concur and support Metro Rail's schedule to have the station open on Friday. But you know, I get concerned when we're down to the last minute. We're getting information to review, because what if something isn't satisfactory, or what if something isn't complete? You know, then we become the bad guys and have to say, well, there's a problem here, and you probably shouldn't open this station on Friday. So, you know, I would just like to say that I would hope in the future, as we do these safety certifications, that Metro Rail will cooperate and try to do this stuff ahead of time and get it complete ahead of the 11th hour before they announce station openings or other such things. So and again, the big issue we have now is the automatic train operation process. And let me move over to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, you know, safety certification that has been called a, you know, a critical element moving forward. This is something that has to be completed before the ATO is approved. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner Levy.
Okay, and from your presentation, I see that we have lots of different items that need to be done. We have some things that we've considered are not complete. Are we getting full cooperation from Metro Rail to get these things done, in your opinion?
In my opinion, no, Commissioner Levy, we don't seem to have the full cooperation from WMATA with these issues that we've raised.
Okay, well, that's important to know, because this process, this safety certification process, has to be completed before we can agree that it's safe to proceed with automatic train operation. And we have lots of requests into Metro Rail, and I'm hoping that we'll get some momentum here, and that Metro Rail will start taking these requirements seriously and get us the information that we need to do our job. Because again, ATO is very complicated. We talked about it before. It's got the human element in it. It's got the technical element. It's a key to safe operation of the metro system. And certainly I wouldn't like to be in the week before automatic train operation is scheduled to go back and be given a bunch of data to complete the safety certification process. That's got to be done ahead of time for us to support this program. And hopefully Metro Rail will begin to basically be a little bit more responsive and get us the information we need to do our job.
Absolutely. We agree with those comments, Commissioner Levy, for sure.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all I have, Chair Hart.
Thank you, Commissioner Laube, and I certainly concur with your comments. And based on my own automation experience, I know that automation is not nearly as simple as many people think. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago that people were forecasting that by 2020, the streets would be full of driverless cars. And you see the streets are not full of driverless cars. And that's because the people who are putting automation in our cars are realizing from hard experience that it's much more of a challenge than they thought. And the challenge is not just make sure the automation doesn't fail. The challenge is also make sure the automation knows what to do if it encounters unanticipated situations. So it's no easy matter to automate things. And I agree with you. I concur with you fully, Commissioner Laube, on the need for our very careful oversight of that. So thank you for those comments, Commissioner Laube, and thank you, Mr. Sahu and Mr. Smith and Ms. Samara Singha for those comments to help enlighten us in that regard. The next item on our unless we have anything else on this one, the next item on our safety agenda is safety investigations. Do we have any other thoughts, comments, suggestions regarding the previous issues?
Chair Hart, I just wanted to add one thing. Thank you for your comments. Automatic train operation is a very important technology, and I just wanted to make it clear that I myself and I don't think anyone at Washington Metro Safety Commission is against applying this new technology. But for us, the way to make sure that it's applied safely, and again, it's not so much new technology, it's just technology that hasn't been used in a while in Washington Metro. But just I want to make sure that we understand that our role is to make sure that Washington Metro, when it brings in and reapplies this automatic train operation, that they do it through their safety certification process. And we're really not talking about the technology as much as we're talking about the Washington Metro processes for safety certification, which are their own processes, the things that they've said need to happen when they apply ATO and other types of programs, that they follow those safety certification requirements. Those are Metro Rail safety certification requirements, not ours. And we're just here, we're the referees, we're here to call the balls and strikes, but they have to play the game and they have to follow their own safety certification requirements. And that's really what it's all about, whether we're talking about Potomac Yard Station, whether we're talking about the Silver Line, or whether we're talking about the return to ATL. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobley, and I certainly concur, and I'm fully, experience has shown that automation has the opportunity, has the ability to improve not only safety, but efficiency, reliability, throughput, it reduces wear and tear. I mean, there are so many benefits to automation, and I'm fully in support of the concept. And unfortunately, we have some other cities around the world who have already automated their mass transit properties that we can use as examples to learn from. So this is an exciting trip that we're taking, but we just have to take it very carefully. So thank you for those comments, Commissioner Lobley. Next on our agenda is safety investigations. We will now move on to the safety event investigation reports that are being presented today, and we will hear presentations on all of the reports and then consider in a single motion all of the reports that were presented that we are prepared to adopt. If any commissioner wishes to remove a report from the group that we will consider for adoption as a single vote, please indicate that at the end of the presentation on that report. So to start the investigative reports, and Investigation Program Manager, Mr. Adam Quigley, will present the first report. Mr. Quigley.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0217 relates to a red signal overrun and associated improper movement on December 6, 2022. Our investigation into the train operators' training records led to the WMSC identifying additional train operators who Metrorail had placed into passenger service despite not meeting Metrorail's training and certification requirements. This event occurred on the first day this train operator was operating on their own. An automatic train control maintenance crew conducting an interlocking inspection just outside of Smithsonian Station had local control of the interlocking and associated signals. This means that a member of the work crew in the train control room controlled signal aspects and switch alignment. This is done at the direction of the roadway worker in charge, who is with the inspectors on the roadway. There was a watchman lookout outside the interlocking near the signal. For multiple other trains, the crew had changed signals to lunar or proceed that provided a proceed hand signal. The crew was using a talk around radio channel, not an operations radio channel. Metrorail does not record talk around radio communications. Operations radio channels are those used to direct train movement and report emergencies. The last direct mention of the work crew to the train operators had been a general radio announcement from the rail controller more than 45 minutes earlier. As the train involved in this event approached Smithsonian Station, the rail controller gave the train operator a permissive block to the end of the platform. The controller did this proactively to ensure the train operator could properly and smoothly berth the train, even with a red signal ahead. However, the train operator did not understand this communication and was not familiar enough with the Metrorail system to understand where they were. During the investigation, the train operator stated in an interview that they believed that the permissive block the rail traffic controller had granted to the end of the Smithsonian Station platform was permission to continue on to the next station. The train operator did not know that the train was at Smithsonian Station already. The signal at the interlocking beyond the station was still red. The train operator moved the train forward. After the train began to move forward and passed the red signal, the radio rail traffic controller requested that the maintenance crew set a lunar or proceed signal on both tracks. The train passed the red signal just after the controller requested the proceed signal. During the investigation, the train operator demonstrated in an interview that they did not know the requirements to safely pass a red signal. Also during the investigation, the watchman lookout and the train operator stated that the watchman lookout provided a proceed hand signal, even though the signal was still red. The watchman lookout stated that they thought the signal was lunar. The rest of the crew later stated that they were surprised by the train suddenly moving past the red signal without a route being set. The work crew did not report the near miss and red signal overrun. Personnel in the Rail Operations Control Center observed an alarm that indicated the train had passed a red signal. The radio rail traffic controller asked the train operator if the signal was lunar when their train passed it. The train operator said it was red. Metrorail procedures require explicit permissions from the ROC to pass a red signal in this situation. This was not provided. Procedures also require the train involved in this type of event to be stopped at the next station. Instead, the rail controller initially instructed the train operator to continue after the red signal overrun, with passengers on board, from Federal Triangle Station to Metro Center Station. The train operator acknowledged this direction, but did not move the train from Federal Triangle Station. The rail traffic controller then instructed the train operator to offload the train at Federal Triangle Station. However, the train operator incorrectly stated that they were at Metro Center Station and that the train was now offloaded. The rail controller informed the train operator that the train was showing on the control information screens as being at Federal Triangle. The train operator repeated incorrectly that they were at Metro Center. Federal Triangle has a single station platform. Blue, orange, and silver trains at Metro Center serve a lower level platform, with red line trains running on an upper level. After riders were offloaded at Federal Triangle, a rail supervisor took over operations of the train. The rail controller improperly directed the supervisor to move the train to Metro Center Station, despite the ongoing investigation. Rail Operations Control Center management identified this improper movement and directed the rail supervisor to hold the train at Metro Center for the investigation. As I mentioned, the train operator in this event demonstrated a lack of understanding of rules, procedures, and physical characteristics of the Metrorail system. The WMSC investigated the train operator's training and certification records and identified that Metrorail had placed the train operator into passenger service despite the operator not meeting Metrorail's safety training requirements. The WMSC identified similar deficiencies in such records of other train operators reviewed as part of other investigations that we requested for review through our coordination with Metrorail's Safety Department investigators. This led the WMSC to gather and review additional information that demonstrated that Metrorail had placed numerous operators into passenger service despite not providing those operators the opportunity to complete Metrorail's safety training program. This specific train operator had not had training on the main line with an instructor as required by the Metrorail procedures. They only had 9 minutes of main line operation with a training instructor. Metrorail has developed its training requirements to provide a level of assurance that train operators have the required information, level of understanding, and detailed experience necessary to ensure that they are prepared to successfully and safely operate the equipment in compliance with all procedures and checklists in both ideal conditions and in emergencies or unusual conditions. We communicated these training and certification deficiencies to Metrorail. Metrorail initially represented to the WMSC that its safety training requirement had changed. and the WMSC then provided Metro Rail with an opportunity to provide documentation that such a change had occurred. Metro Rail later acknowledged that its safety training requirements had not changed and that this has continued to be its safety requirement. Instead, Metro Rail confirmed that it had been bypassing its safety training processes and assigning train operators directly to operate trains in passenger service with other train operators as a mentor. Metro Rail's documented requirements state that this may occur only after 8 hours of non-passenger operation with a training instructor. Metro Rail identified 54 train operators who had placed into passenger service without meeting Metro Rail's safety training requirements from January 2022 to January 2023. Metro Rail also stated it had been preparing to progress 9 other train operator trainees to passenger service without meeting those safety requirements. The train operator involved in the December 6, 2022 red signal overrun was recorded as completing only 9 minutes of the 8 hours of required time actually operating a train during yard practical training. The train operator's post-event investigative interview and radio recordings related to this event demonstrate that the operator had not reached the required understanding to safely operate the train in this event, even though they had just been certified the week before. A train operator involved in a December 31st, 2022 station overrun of Dunloring Station, who had been certified for the first time on October 17th, 2022, stated that they did not operate a train on mainline in yard practical training. The training deficiencies are not only cause of these events, however, the events are demonstrations of the impact on the overall safety of the system. These new safety issues were in addition to other safety issues regarding uncertified train operators that the WMSC identified and communicated to Metro Rail in 2021 and 2022 that Metro Rail had begun to address. They are also in addition to deficiencies in Metro Rail's training program, such as insufficient physical characteristic training and assessments. Metro Rail is behind the original schedule for this CAP to address physical characteristics and territory familiarization. After the WMSC escalated this issue, Metro Rail submitted an extension request in late January to provide a new delayed schedule. Since this event, we have identified additional apparent deficiencies in Metro Rail's train operator certification process. We are continuing to review and assess these issues, such as operators that did not meet requirements or were not tested on all requirements to determine if further action is required. As interior mitigations, Metro Rail reminded train operators of red signal and station overrun rules and prevention measures, and reminded Rail Operations Control Center personnel about the investigation procedure requirements to hold equipment in place. Metro Rail's provided train operators who had not completed Metro Rail's training requirements yet were still placed into passenger service with operational instruction from training instructors. Metro Rail developed a lessons learned communication for ATC maintenance personnel regarding the need for effective communication among work crew members and proper exclusive track occupancy local signal control procedures. Metro Rail is adjusting procedures for exclusive track occupancy local signal control. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley? That was quite a report you had there. A whole lot of failure of situational awareness in that. And I'm going to have a few questions of my own, but let me see if anybody else has any questions for you, Mr. Quigley.
Chair Hart, I have some questions on this.
Yes, Commissioner Lobby.
I wanted to start looking at the report. I wanted to ask several questions here. First of all, there's a section of the report, Mr. Quigley, that says the radio rail traffic controller made a blanket, and this is in parentheses, not directed to a specific operator or requiring repeat back announcement approximately 51 minutes prior to the train passing the red signal without permission, stating that personnel were working on the roadway. I was surprised that the 51 minutes, are these reports not repeated periodically from the rail traffic controller?
They should be every 20 minutes.
Okay, and does the rail traffic controller at some point announce that personnel's not on the track, that the work is over?
Anytime there's an update, so whether a new crew enters the roadway or exits a roadway, that announcement is also made or should be made, sir.
Okay, so they do announce when the work is over and the personnel exit the roadway.
Right. They basically update their announcement, and at the end of their, it's a lengthy announcement that kind of goes over their rules and procedures and what's required of the train operator, the instructions, and then follows with all the locations that wayside workers are located at currently.
Okay, and I'd like to ask you just to walk through what should have happened with passing this red signal, because one thing I'm a little confused over is you have the watchman that thinks that there's a proceed signal, and he waves the operator forward, but again the roadway workers that are in the tunnel are surprised by the train. You know, what exactly is supposed to happen, you know, for the operator, for the watchman, and for the people in the tunnel? How do they know that something's going on and that they need to get out of the way because there's going to be a train coming through?
Well, for the operator is just waiting for a proceed or lunar signal, you know, so unless they got instructions to pass the red signal. For the wayside crew, the RIC, the roadway worker in charge, and the individual that is in the TCR room controlling the signals are in constant radio communication. So the individual in the TCR room will notify, you know, the RIC that there's, you know, a train possibly outside of the interlocking waiting to proceed, and that it was, you know, it's time to clear. And then the RIC responsibility is to get everybody in a place of safety. And once everybody is in a place of safety, the RIC can give permission to that individual in the TCR room to set the signal and remove the red signal and put a lunar. This was a pretty bang event. I mean, from the interview process, the RIC had stated that they were all in a place of safety, and that he was in the process of having the TCR individual set the lunar. So that is why the watchman lookout had started giving the proceed signal, because they were in a place of safety, and he had assumed that the signal was set since they were in a place of safety.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the training also, because we've talked about the training several times, including last month, and some of the problems with operator training and not getting enough on the job training or operational training on the actual system. You know, both in the probable cause that we have, it says train operator failure. The probable cause of this event was Metrorail's failure to meet its train operator training. We also note that we're continuing to investigate Metrorail's training and certification practices in the months since this event occurred. And this event was in December, is that correct? December
6th, yes, sir.
Okay, December 6th. So since that time, are there other operators out there that have not been properly trained or have not been given the proper amount of on-the-job training with a training instructor, to your knowledge? So
Metrorail was, identify those 54 individuals and retrain them to meet those requirements. The things that we've been finding lately are more, concerning their certifications. And if the certifications were completed properly, there's some certification documentation that's not filled out properly, that's incomplete. Things are missing. For an example, if the train operator understands how to shut down the EV, which is a NTSB recommendation, I don't think that should be left blank on their certification process if it's a requirement, to be a certified operator. Some of the times, are very similar. If there's a class of train operators that all certified around the same time, we're seeing a lot of similarities in the documentation where they all, did certain tasks, the same time, 1 minute, all of them, 30 seconds, all of them. It just some rare things that were rare things that we're seeing like that. Not so much the on-the-job training. I think Metrorail has caught up with that and has stayed on top of on-job training and making sure the trains are available. It's the certification process now that we've focused on more.
So with the certification, well, let me say the training and certification process, since how do they depart from the processes and procedures that they have? I mean, Washington Metro has a process, a training, a syllabus, all the stuff that you're supposed to do to train an operator. Do they just ignore the requirements? I mean, are the requirements not clear in their own documentation? Do you understand how this might happen?
The requirements are very black and white in their procedures for a certification process. We're still trying to figure out why they're not being followed. We've gotten some responses back from Archer QA. Unfortunately, that their responses don't really match up with their own procedures. So that's something we're still continuing to have discussions with the safety department and with Archer QA through the safety department.
Okay, and now the safety department is in charge of training, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is certification included as part of that?
No, certification is done through Archer QA QC, which still reports to the Archer department.
The what?
Archer department.
Okay.
The rail transportation.
Okay. So these requirements are still separate, but I guess that makes sense because the chief safety officer has responsible for the training. They do the training, and then the operations basically confirm that the operators know what they're doing. So
correct.
That in itself seems logical. A question about personnel. Is there like a glut of new operators showing up at Washington Metro? Are they having trouble keeping the operators that they have? There seems to be a lot of training going on all of a sudden.
I don't think they're having a hard time, finding or keeping operators. I think it was with COVID, they were a little backed up with training and had to pause some training during the COVID process. I think we saw that when they had changed their recertification process and put those to a side and weren't doing them. But no, I don't believe they're having issues hiring or keeping operators or just catching up, sir.
Okay. One more thing about the training, and in your opinion, there's still a lot of work to do to get Metro Rail following their own procedures, or is this something that all the issues are being handled right now?
We're working on it, sir.
Okay, there's more work to be done, in other words.
Absolutely. Always work to be done.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had, Chair Hart.
Thank you, Commissioner Laube, for that very excellent line of questions. I had one follow-up question on the training issue, and that is training a one-time thing or is it recurrent?
The initial operator training is a one-time thing. It's the refresher that they come back after 2 years. I mean, they have a like an online CBT that they're doing, like an online test that's conducted, and then every 2 years they come back for like a refresher training. But it's not very long. I think it's a day or two refresher before they recertify.
Is the refresher training on the train or is it on the computer?
I believe it's on the train.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I noticed an interesting reference that you made to a talk-around phone. What is a talk-around phone?
Talk-around is just another radio channel that's programmed on the WMATA radios that they can use. So when you have a wayside crew like doing an interlocking inspection, they do a lot of talking back and forth, and it would tie up the main line, that the rail traffic controllers use. So it is something that's very common throughout WMATA. It's just an easier way to talk and communicate with your crew without interrupting what's going on, the main line, and if there's any emergencies or things like that. It's just not being recorded.
So that's not a situation of work being done differently than work being planned. That's intentional, and it's not uncommon in the system to have talk-around phones.
Correct, sir.
Why would that information not be recorded? Why would that be any less in need of recording than any other radio transmissions?
No, we definitely agree with you that, and we're looking into what the talk around, channels, and if it's, what needs to be done to record those. I mean, I think we have a cap that's almost coming to a closure with WMATA's recording and making sure all their resources are recorded. That might be something that we need to bring up and remind, Metro Rail about their talk around channels and if it's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions from any commissioners for Mr. Quigley? Okay, thank you. Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Investigations Analyst, Ms. Natalie Keyrose, would you please present the next investigation report?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0218 relates to a collision in New Carrollton Rail Yard on January 11th, 2023. A Metro Rail Swing Master high rail crane vehicle crashed into 3 unoccupied vehicles parked in the yard, including 1 Metro Rail vehicle and 2 personal vehicles. The equipment operator was attempting to move the Swing Master to the car track equipment maintenance building for maintenance after it was delivered to the yard entrance on a flatbed trailer. Because of the yard configuration, the trailer could not be used to bring the Swing Master alongside the building. The vehicle is a roadway maintenance machine that is primarily used to remove and replace rail. The machine can be operated both on rubber tires and the rails. In this instance, the equipment operator was operating using rubber tires. As the equipment operator turned the vehicle around the corner from the yard entrance toward the vehicle access to the car track equipment maintenance building, the equipment operator lost control of the vehicle. The equipment operator did not immediately apply braking. They instead attempted to correct the steering issue. The equipment operator stated the steering wheel locked while turning. This was partially corroborated by post-event vehicle examination. The collision was not reported to the Rail Operations Control Center until approximately 35 minutes after it occurred. Metro Rail removed this and other similar new Swing Master units from service and requested adjustments from the equipment manufacturer. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Keyrose. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Keyrose?
I have a question, Chair Hart.
Yes, please, Commissioner Lowry.
You said that the steering locked. Does that mean you can't steer anymore? That's what's meant by steering locked?
Correct. Yeah, and in the post-event investigation, they were able to recreate it for a left turn. They didn't see it exactly on a right turn, which this incident happened on a right turn, but they noticed that same problem that the operator described.
So is this kind of the primary cause here, the locked steering?
Yes.
And I assume this is a defect with the equipment, is that correct?
Yes.
And this equipment did not undergo certification, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have, Chair Hart.
So following up on your line of questioning, Commissioner Labby, was that defect fixed, or what's the story on the defect?
The equipment is still out of service. So there's multiple vehicles that they haven't been fixed yet.
Well, that was my next question. Is it just this vehicle, or is it a problem on other vehicles as well, or did you find that out from this investigation?
Right. They removed all the similar Swing Masters.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from any other commissioners from Ms. Keyrose? Okay, thank you. Mr. Quigley, would you please present the next investigation report?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0219 relates to a collision between a train and a Metro Rail rubber tired vehicle in the Alexandria Rail Yard on January 7th, 2023. A detective drove their Metro Transit Police Department vehicle into a grade crossing in the yard, leading to a collision with a moving train. Metro Rail procedures grant a train at a grade crossing the right-of-way. The train operator, who was operating a 2-car train from the B car's cab, properly stopped the train at the crossing and sounded the train's horn. The train operator then waited as required by procedure. The B car's cab has less functionality than the A car and reduced visibility for operators, but operating from the car is allowed for movements in the yard. Its use does not appear to have been a contributing factor in the collision. As the train began to move and entered the grade crossing, the detective slowed their car but did not stop at the stop sign and drove forward into the crossing ahead of the train. CCTV shows the detective stopped after entering the path of the train and then began to reverse just before the collision. The train operator slowed the train, but the front left portion of the train collided with the front right side of the car. Neither the detective nor the train operator was injured. The detective did not know that train operators sound the vehicle's horn prior to moving and immediately interpreted the train's horn as a signal for them to drive in front of the train. As corrective actions, Metrorail updated its Metro Transit Police Department refresher training to include information regarding train movement. Specifically, that a train operator sounding a horn can mean the train is going to move, and that as specified by Metrorail cardinal rule, train movement should be expected in any direction at any time. Metrorail is developing grade crossing signage for rail yards about being alert for train movement and that a horn may indicate train movement. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Keyrose, would you please present the next investigation reports?
Thank you, Chair Hart. There are 4 investigation reports today related to evacuations for life safety reasons. The first event, Whiskey 0220, occurred in the Alexandria Rail Yard on November 17, 2022. During this event, the Revenue Collection Building was evacuated due to a bomb threat. There were numerous deficiencies during the response. The threat and decision to evacuate was not communicated to all necessary internal stakeholders, including the special police officer stationed at Alexandria Rail Yard entrance, the Security Operations Control Center, which serves as MTPD dispatch, the Maintenance Operations Center, and the interlocking operator, who is responsible for all train movement in the yard. Metrorail also did not follow established incident command and emergency procedures during this event. The investigation found that Metrorail's Revenue Collection Facilities Emergency Action Plan did not include steps necessary for bomb threats and evacuations. Investigation Whiskey 0221 relates to an evacuation of Woodley Park Station on January 21st, 2023. There were several reports of fire and smoke. The first report occurred at 12:46 p.m. when a track worker reported fire on track 1. Metrorail was using this track for passenger service as trains single track through the station during weekend track work. Ventilation fans were already on due to the work. Service was stopped and Metrorail's emergency response team identified the cause to be arcing involving debris around an insulator. The station was not evacuated. The arcing stopped. Thorough power remained energized. Service was restored at 1:09 p.m. At 4:06 p.m., an emergency response team member informed the Rail Operations Control Center that they saw smoke in the area of the platform. Despite this report, the Rail Operations Information Center instructed the station manager to check for smoke. The station manager stated they did not see any issues. The emergency response team was granted foul time to inspect the roadway and reported that nothing was found. At 4:33 p.m., Metro Transit Police Department officer stated that the fire was extinguished and service was continuing. At 4:41 p.m., arcing began again as a train departed the station on track 1. This was observed by personnel at the station and reported to the ROCC by a rail supervisor at the station. WMATA did not follow its incident command and emergency communications procedures during this event. The ROCC controller improperly designated the emergency response team member the on-scene commander, despite MTPD personnel being on the scene. The MTPD personnel did not have situational awareness due to lack of incident command. The Rail Operations Control Center Assistant Operations Manager called for a DC fire and EMS response at 4:46 p.m. The fire liaison within the ROCC was not notified of this event. The station was evacuated at 4:48 p.m. and the station's gates were closed at 5:08 p.m. One train operator was instructed to reverse ends and move their train back to DuPont Circle, keeping riders away from the smoke. Third power was de-energized, which stopped the arcing. A bolt and fastener were replaced before normal service resumed. Investigation Whiskey 0222 relates to an evacuation for life safety reasons of the lower level of Gallery Place Chinatown Station on January 19th, 2022. During this event, a Metro Transit Police Department liaison reported smoke on the lower level of the station to the Rail Operations Control Center at 1:08 p.m. Just before the report, a train had serviced the station and reported no issues. A train on the platform at the time of the report did not report any issues. The station manager was instructed to investigate, and MTPD and DC Fire and EMS response was requested. Green and yellow line trains that would normally service the lower level of Gallery Place were instructed to hold and turn back. Normal service continued on the red line on the upper level of the station. Ventilation fans were activated at 1:14 p.m. and the lower level of the station was closed and evacuated at 1:19 p.m. The station manager confirmed there was smoke on track 2 on the lower level, and at 1:21 p.m. Thirlwell power was de-energized on both tracks between Gallery Place, Chinatown, and Mount Vernon Square stations. The ROCC Rail Traffic Controller designated an ARCHA supervisor on-scene commander. This is contrary to SOP 1A, which requires MTPD personnel, if present, to be the on-scene commander. This error was later corrected when MTPD assumed the on-scene commander role. DC Fire and EMS determined the cause of the smoke and fire was from debris burning on a light fixture behind the third rail. The trash was removed and service was later restored. Investigation Whiskey 0223 relates to an evacuation of a train at Spring Hill Station due to a bomb threat on April 21st, 2022. This event was resolved quickly with no identified concerns. Police took one person into custody, swept the train for any potential explosives, then released the train. Thank you. That completes this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Key Rose. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Ms. Key Rose?
I have a question, Chair Hart.
Yes, please, Commissioner Lobby.
We've talked a lot about incident command and in the past accidents, and just been keeping score on this. Of the 4, 3 of them had incident command issues. Is there any way to get on top of this issue? There seems to be incident command issues every time we have an evacuation, every time we have an event. Does Metrorail ever do drills or anything to make sure people know how to do incident command? You know, I'm kind of baffled at why this is always comes up every time we have an evacuation or a safety event. Does anybody have an answer for me?
Yeah, so Metrorail does quarterly emergency drills where they invite all the different jurisdictions to participate. You know, it could be a derailment, you know, simulation or active shoot or whatever they choose. They're also, I think, implementing IMF procedures, and I think Richard David could probably talk more on that. And I think that's Metrorail's, I guess you can say, bread and butter on you know, where they go from here and how they improve their emergency response.
Commissioner Lobby, if I can add to what Mr. Quigley explained. So in terms of incident command, during audit on the emergency management and fire life safety, which was conducted, and the report issued back in last year, I think early last year is when we issued the report. There were multiple areas that we found where procedures that Metrorail has in place to address how to handle incident command, including SOP 1A, which is the command and control SOP that governs all incident response following various kinds of unusual occurrences or emergencies on the Metrorail system. We have found during the audit, as well as what you've heard over and over again in investigations that look at evacuations for life safety, especially, that there is much to be done in terms of bringing Metro back into conforming with its own rules and procedures when it comes to incident command and coordination. So there is improvement. There are caps that Metrorail is working on implementing as a result of the emergency management and fire life safety audit that we conducted. and work is underway. But as you have pointed out, the issues still remain unresolved as Metrorail continues to work on completing the work and implementing incident command management stipulations and activities.
Well, thank you. Thank you for those comments. I guess I'm just expecting to see an improvement as we move along, and we just seem to have incident command issues on every incident. And this, apparently they did it right on the last one, but the other three all had issues, and 25% is not a passing grade at any school that I know. So hopefully they will take some action and not wait to complete every requirement of the CAP. Take some action right now to really improve incident command and get the information out. Certainly the rail traffic controllers should know, who to designate as the one in charge of these incidents. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some improvement in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobby, and I concur. It doesn't appear to be very high on the list of priorities, judging from how frequently we see it recur. So I agree with you completely on that. Are there any other questions for Ms. Quiroz on this investigation? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Quigley, will you please present the final reports?
Thank you, Chair Hart. We have 3 other reports to present for your consideration today. Investigation Whiskey 0224 relates to a serious employee injury at Medical Center Station on May 18th, 2022. A traction power technician rolled their ankle going down the steps on the safety walk, breaking their foot. The technician did not initially recognize the severity of the injury, but reported it to a supervisor after returning home. Metrorail did not report the injury to the WMSC until additional reporting on the severity of the injury. Their work boots were worn, so they had limited traction, and the area was dark. Investigation Whiskey 0225 relates to the serious injury of a Metro Transit Police Department officer on June 6, 2022, after they confronted a person in the Anacostia station, then struggled with that person. Investigation Whiskey 0226 relates to a serious injury near Braddock Road Station on June 26, 2022. The person ran onto the roadway after an altercation on the Braddock Road Station platform, then jumped off a wall in an apparent attempt to avoid police officers. The person was hurt in the fall and was later rescued by first responders and lifted back up to the Metro Rail roadway. Thank you. That completes our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners for Mr. Quigley? So did any of these actions require any corrective actions?
I believe that the first one, Whiskey 0224, they sent out reminders on PPE and the boot. I'm sorry, they call it like a boot allowance to make sure that employees know that they get a certain per diem or whatever to buy boots and to keep their boots, up to date and compliant.
Thank you. It seems like these are not quite yet completed stories in terms of what's happening to try to prevent problems from occurring in the future.
Right. Well, yeah, the last 225 and 226 were just individuals. The police officer was doing their job, trying to apprehend an individual and was injured in the process. And then the last one, 226, an individual was trying to evade transit police officers, and jumped over a pretty significant wall that dropped into CSX territory. And then they were able to lift that individual off the CSX property onto Metrorail's property.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from any of the other commissioners for Mr. Quigley? Okay, thank you. That completes today's investigation report presentations. So is there a motion to adopt the investigation reports all together that have just been presented? That would be Whiskey 0217, 0218, 0219, 0220, 0221, 0222, 0223, 0224, 0225, and 0226. Is there a motion to, okay, Commissioner Bob, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Second, and that's from Commissioner Farrar. Who is that from?
Deborah Farrar Dyke.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Any
Yay,
opposed, please
Mike
raise
Rush's
your
hand
hand.
is raised.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And any opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
Chair Hart, the vote is 6-0 and the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is resolutions and other actions. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for that vote. Our first resolution today relates to the consideration of the WMSC's fiscal year 2024 budget. Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, would you like to provide an overview for us?
Thank you, Chair Hart. The Finance and Operations Committee reviewed this final budget during our meeting on May 9th, and our committee recommends approval. This is the conclusion of a required months-long process that included development and distribution of the draft work plan and budget last fall, review, input, and agreement from the jurisdictions, and the process now culminates in today's final approval vote. The fiscal year 2024 budget covers July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. This budget will continue to strengthen our organization next year and in the years to come, building on the significant work we already have underway. Mr. Angie, did you have anything else to add as the Chief Financial Officer? And please excuse my voice.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke. The fiscal year 2024 budget before you today totals $6.7 million. It will support our continued success in our safety oversight activities and fiscal management. The largest share of the budget goes to pay salaries and benefits for our staff. This budget was completed following all provisions in the master funding agreement in coordination with Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. As you noted, this budget was submitted and reviewed by the Finance and Operations Committee, which has recommended this budget for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke and CFO Angie. Are there any questions for either of them from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt WMSC's fiscal year 2024 budget via resolution R-2023-02?
So moved.
So moved, Commissioner Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Lobby. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Yay.
Yay,
Yay.
Mike Rush's hand is raised.
Thank you.
And Commissioner
All opposed?
Alcatraz, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Alcatraz, your hand was also raised.
Yes, my hand is raised.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we had no opposed. So Mr. Smith, what's the count?
The vote is 6-0 and the motion carries, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. We have one other resolution on our agenda today, and that relates to our independent financial audit. Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke, the floor is yours once again. Sorry about your voice problem.
The Finance and Operations Committee has reviewed and recommends approval of the selection of SB & Company as the independent auditor for the next 3 years. In addition to being good financial practice for the board, these audits are required under the WMSC compact. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight the strong and responsible work of the WMSC staff, which has led to clean audits for each financial audit of the WMSC. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke. Is there a motion to adopt resolution R-2023-03, selecting this year's independent auditor?
So moved.
Commissioner Lobby moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Bob. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay. Yay.
Yay.
Yay. Raise my
Yay,
hand.
Commissioner
Yay.
Rush's hands are raised.
All opposed, please raise your hand and say nay.
All right, we got everyone that time. The vote is 6-0 and the motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So that completes our business for today. As a reminder, you can always report any safety concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. I would like to thank Dr. Meyer and his staff for all of the hard work to continuously improve the safety of Metro Rail, and I would also like to thank them for their presentations today in this meeting. I'd also like to thank the commissioners for being so engaged in the process and in this meeting in particular. And finally, I would like to thank the members of the public who attended the meeting, including the member who had a separate public comment. We expect to hold our next meeting on June 13th, 2023. We look forward to seeing you then. Is there any further business to be addressed today? Hearing none, I hereby adjourn this meeting.